Valentina Tereshkova, born on March 6, 1937 in the village Maslenikova Tutelovsky district, in central Russia. Tereshkova's father was a tractor driver and her mother worked in a textile plant. Tereshkova began school in 1945 at the age of 8, but left school in 1953 and continued her education through distance learning. She became interested in parachuting from a young age, and trained in skydiving at the local Aero Club, making her first jump at age 22 on May 21, 1959. At that time she was employed as a textile worker in a local factory. It was her expertise in skydiving that led to her selection as a cosmonaut. After the flight of Yuri Gagarin, the first human began to travel to outer space in 1961, the Soviet Union decided to send a woman in space. On February 16, 1962, proletariat Valentina Tereshkova was selected for this project from among more than 400 applications. Tereshkova had to undergo a series of training that included weightless flight, isolation test, centrifuge tests, rocket theory, spacecraft engineering, 120 parachuting jumps and pilot training in MiG-15 UDL jet fighters. Since the successful launch of the spacecraft Vostok 5 on June 14, 1963, Tereshkova began preparing for her own flight. On morning of June 16, 1963, Tereshkova and her backup cosmonaut Solovyova were dressed in spacesuits and taken to the Space Shuttle launch pad by a bus. After completing her communications and life support checks, she was sealed inside Vostok 6. Finishing a 2-hour countdown, Vostok 6 launched faultless. Although Tereshkova experienced nausea and physical discomfort for much of the flight, she orbited the Earth 48 times and spent almost 3 days in space. With a single flight, she logged more flight time than the combined times of all American astronauts who had flown before that date. Tereshkova also maintained a flight log and took photographs of the horizon, which were later used to identify aerosol layer within the atmosphere. Vostok 6 was the final Vostok flight and was launched 2 days after Vostok 5, which carried by Valery Bykovsky into a similar orbit for 5 days, landing 3 hours after Tereshkova. The two vessels approached each other within 5 kilometers at one point, and from space Tereshkova communicated with Bykovsky and the Soviet leader Khrushchev by radio. Much later, in 1977, Tereshkova earned a doctorate in engineering Zhukovsky Air Force Academy. Afterwards she turned to politics. During the Soviet regime she is a member in the lower house of Russian legislature. On her 70th birthday, when she was invited by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, she expressed her desire to fly to Mars, even if for a one-way trip.